Sup, Rolita? I'm Leon, the Paperback Maniac, coming at you with the second book review for Satanic Summer, which is a series of vintage horror reviews on novels dealing with Satan, demons, demonic forces, the occult, and so on. Today, we are taking a look at The Devil's Coin by Mark Manley. Now, go ahead and read that tagline on the bottom. Just take a moment to soak that in. This book was published by Zebra in 1990. Yes, the second early 90s Zebra book I'm reviewing on this channel. I'm on a roll here. I will begin, as usual, by reading the synopsis from the back cover. A prize from the attic. There wasn't all that much for Zach to do in the sleepy Wisconsin subdivision. The kids at school were cool, he guessed, but he didn't like to hang around them on weekends. He much preferred messing around in his folks' attic, going through his Gramps' old Army medals. In fact, last Saturday, he found one he'd never seen before. A brilliant silver coin. Brilliant... ... A dream come true. After Zach began carrying the coin, he started to sense things about other people. He knew what they were thinking, what they would do before they did. He could make things happen. And when Zach got mad, things happened. Bizarre and violent things, accidents and deaths. Zach knew the coin was evil, but the temptation was too great. His new powers too awesome. Besides, it was fun getting even. And now that I think about it, that synopsis brings to mind another Zebra horror novel from the late 80s, one that I reviewed on this channel last year, William W. Johnstone's Sandman. Now, could The Devil's Coin possibly be as trashy as Johnstone's 1988 opus of inanity? Well, let's find out. So, the novel begins, surprise, surprise, with a prologue set in the year of 1192 when a bishop is summoned to a monastery in northwestern Italy because the 30 coins of Judas Iscariot have been discovered. Now, according to the Gospels, Judas was paid these coins to betray Jesus, and anyone who possesses the coins will have all the powers of Satan. So, the coins need to be buried beneath the monastery in a drawer made out of the wood of Jesus' cross. However, before that can happen, of course, our bishop is tempted to take the coins. He acquisitively kind of tries to grasp them and gets his hand lopped off in the process, though that doesn't stop him. Nor is he deterred when his spine is severed with a sword by a knight, or after his head is chopped off. His body just keeps going after those damn coins. Well, eventually his body stops moving, and the clerics are able to dispose of it and bury the coins beneath the monastery. Now, this tells you right off the bat that these coins are very, very dangerous, very, very tempting, and, nothing to joke around with, right? So then we flash forward to the present day of 1990, and divorced mom Sunny is visiting her parents for the weekend at their island cottage off the coast of Wisconsin with her boyfriend Graham and her 9-year-old son Zach. Now, Zach is an imaginative and whimsical little kid. He likes to play make-believe alien war games outside by himself. He uses an old tree root as his ray gun and pretends that there are creatures out to get him, and he's running around zapping them with his ray gun. And he thinks about a couple of bullies from back home and kind of wishes that he could zap them with his ray gun too. In fact, he thinks about them and he imagines making them sort of like their bodies dance with all of these volts of electricity from his ray gun, frying them nice and slow, quote, so their juices would crackle and pop, and so he could tell them what he thought of them while they cooled to crispy critters. Jesus, kid. So Zach, during his play, decides he's going to recon in the loft of his grandfather's boathouse. And so he goes up there. It's really cramped and dusty and just filled with a bunch of stuff. He starts rifling through his grandfather's old boxes and comes across some pretty cool stuff. He finds He finds a box of his grandfather's old army medals. He finds an old army helmet that his grandfather must have taken, a German army helmet that his father must have taken as a souvenir, maybe from like a soldier he had killed during the war. He finds like a Luger pistol with like a skull and crossbones on it, a Nazi diary, which will come into play later, a bayonet, and all kinds of stuff. And then he comes across a small wooden box that's locked, but that he can hear something like rattling around inside. And for some reason, he is drawn to this box, and he surreptitiously kind of sneaks it in his jeans after his parents, his mom and her boyfriend Graham, like kind of call him to come down to go to bed. And so he takes this box with him, and then that night, as he is sort of lying in bed in his grandfather's guest room, he looks over at his jeans draped over a chair where the box is kept, and sees a shadow that, quote, looked alive, like something dark and hulking had decided to perch there at the foot of the bed and watch him sleep. And then we get some more foreshadowing when outside a, quote, skeleton-like tree branch waved slowly at him and tapped softly at his window. So Zach is a little frightened and thinks, oh, is there something in my room? Is there something like watching me sleep? And then he starts to hear these voices in his head, voices alluding to this locked box that he took from his grandfather's loft. One of them says, "Come, take me out of your pocket, play with me." And then another voice says, "Put me back where you found me, bury me deep in the woods." And then he keeps this back and forth. The other voice says, "Don't do that, Zach. You'll miss all the fun. Come play with me. Come break my lock. Let me be your secret friend. I promise you fun and mystery, magical powers to help you zing, zap, sizzle, and electrify those bullies back home." So on their way back to the mainland, Sunny, the Zach's mom, and her boyfriend Graham drop off this German diary, which they themselves came across as they were kind of rummaging around Sunny's father's loft. They drop it off at a friend of Graham's who is kind of like can translate the diary, because they wonder, like, what could this be? An old, German diary from World War II. Now, when they get home, the mother, Sunny, immediately senses that something is different about Zach. He's been sort of uncharacteristically quiet and sort of withdrawn lately. She worries about him. So, one night she goes into his room and she smells like this awful stench coming from his room. And then she looks at Zach, she sees and she feels his skin, finds that he's ice cold. She tries to turn on a light to figure out what's wrong, and Zach is acting really weird and tells her, "No, don't do that." And the minute that she goes for the light switch, the light bulb inexplicably shatters. And then she steps on a piece of broken glass and cuts her foot. And then she leaves, and then Zach is lying there in his bed smiling, because actually Zach has opened this box. He opened it up with a hammer and found what was inside, a treasure for little Zach, which is a single gleaming silver coin that when he had touched kind of sizzled his skin, and it actually melded into his palm and kind of scorched his flesh and is kind of just a part of him now. The picture scorched into the skin of his palm. And he quickly realizes that he can do things now with this coin. He can make things happen, such as when his mom earlier was in the room and she wanted to turn on the light. Zach didn't want that, so he made that light bulb shatter. He realizes that was his doing. And he realizes he also made his mother step on the piece of glass to cut her foot. And he feels kind of bad about that, but at the same time he thinks, well, I didn't want you to come to me, and so you learned your lesson. Right? And then Zach senses that, he has these new powers, these new abilities. He can make things happen. He can understand what other people are doing as well. And he realizes that now no one can make Zach do what he doesn't want, right? He is in full control here. So the next day, Zach goes after one of these bullies that he hates with a baseball bat, and he actually sends him to the hospital with a broken arm, according to the doctor, and is taken home by the police. When Zach's father, Zach's parents are divorced, when his father finds out about this, he arrives at the house furious, wanting to talk to Zach. He goes up to Zach's bedroom, And he sees in Zach's palm this like silver glinting thing. And he asks Zach, hey, what is that? And Zach won't tell him, won't show him. And when he tries to get closer, like a bookcase like falls on his father. And then Zach's dad starts to get really upset and says, Zach, show me what's in your hand. I want to see that, whatever that thing is. And at this moment, Zach casually brings up his hand to his mouth and viciously bites down on the coin, tearing out like a chunk of his flesh with it, and swallows it, swallows the coin, and then kind of like just like holds up his palm up to his father, smiling as the blood is dribbling down. Absolutely horrifies both of his parents, right? So Zach gets grounded for this, which he thinks is ridiculous. He's thinking like how dare anyone ground me? Now I have all of these powers. No one can make me do anything, right? And, you know, when he gets upset, he realizes that things like move around in his room, like his bookcase can like start like shaking and like juddering, and he can upend like his wardrobe and closet. And he really starts reveling in the power of this coin, and he senses that there are other coins out there as well, that this is not the only coin, and he wants those coins as well. Now, meanwhile, Graham finds out from his professor friend who he had given the Nazi diary to, and finds out that this diary that they found in Sonny's father's boathouse was actually from a colonel that was in a special like SS unit that had was supervising a crew of German officers during the war, and they had looted a monastery in Italy during the war and found all of these treasures and absconded with them. And the diary actually details exactly where they found this treasure and where the treasure is buried to this day in Germany by the Nazis. So very, very valuable information in this diary. Well, it doesn't take long before soon other people find out that that this family is in possession of this very valuable diary with this information, and soon people start showing up, trying to get the diary and to get the other things that they have possession of, namely the silver coin. And of course, Zach is not going to let that happen. He will not allow anyone to take his devil's coin from him, and he takes care of these people in pleasantly gory ways. Also, Zach uses his newfound powers to summon his asshole dad back to the house, and he orders his dad to go to Germany and go to the area where the diary had said the rest of the loot was hidden, so that he can get the remaining coins. And his dad, who is completely psychically under the sway of his psychotic 9-year-old son, actually does this. He actually flies to Germany in his plane to seek this treasure for his son. And of course, at a certain point, we also get some priests who show up at Sonny's house and who deliver pages and pages of exposition in the most clumsy and graceless way about sort of the history of these coins. They explain the gravity of the situation, that under no circumstances must Zach, get the remaining coins. And Zach had, run away at this point, so they don't know where he is, but they're like, look, we need to find your son. He cannot get the coins. And, they give the whole history of the coins, dating back to Christ's time all the way through World War II, when the Germans had, looted the monastery and found all this stuff. And then the German officer who found the coins and was writing in the diary got killed by Zach's grandfather, and that's how Zach had come into possession of the coins. And basically, the priests tell Zach's mom that, if these coins are released again and people have them, this could set off another, dark age. And this is very, very, very dangerous. Of course, Zach is hell-bent on getting the rest of those coins, or what he refers to as quote-unquote darling little power pills. That's how he refers to them. Although, you tell me a 9-year-old that would use the word darling, right? And he resolves to get the rest of the coins, which hopefully his father is going to bring back to him at whatever deadly cost. Right? And, gradually, or, maybe not so gradually, Zach loses his humanity, basically becomes like a little junior minion of Satan, And you can tell that the author Mark Manley was like trying to go for like an exorcist type thing, like with the innocent little kid being possessed by a demon that makes him act and say like heinous things. I mean, there's even a scene where little Zach is like scuttling on all fours backwards from a priest and then later tied up to a bed. But yeah, suffice to say, Mark Manley is no William Peter Blatty, and this novel is no The Exorcist, right? On the plus side, there are just a couple of fun 80s pop culture references. For example, little Zach's bedroom is adorned with posters of Darth Vader and E.T. He even has a pet gerbil named Darth. The writing is fairly decent, at least for Zebra standards. It's a hell of a lot better than William W. Johnstone, that's for sure. I wrote down a quote of this is the author describing a kid bully, one of the bullies that taunts Zach, named Pringle and his lackey friends. It says, quote, Pringle's 3 pimples oozed along in their guru's wake and placed themselves around him like a gang of blackheads admiring a real whopper of a whitehead. Like, that's kind of cool. And it's also kind of cool how being in the possession of even a single one of these Judas coins like makes you totally impervious to destruction. Like, you can be split open, with loops of intestines dangling, dragging along your knees like a chain wallet from 1990, and still be single-mindedly going for your purpose, which is these coins, and trying to get them, no matter what happens to your body physically. That's kind of cool. And we do get a few nice moments of gore, particularly toward the end. Some pretty gnarly descriptions of gunshot wounds in particular. I'm talking like Rob Bottin levels of chunk here. Like, think the boardroom scene in RoboCop. Just skulls being blown off, exposed brain matter pulsing and glistening. Here's a passage I wrote down of a character after a bullet fired from below and at close range rips its way along his face. It says, quote, his left cheek was gone. In its place was a twisted maze of raw flesh, broken teeth, and exposed roots. His cheekbone had been shattered. His left eye bulged obscenely from a socket only barely capable of containing the pressure of the eye. Part of the left eyelid was gone. And so on and so forth. And that's just one of many, many scenes of just hyper gore that are present in this book. The kind of stuff that Zebra is sort of known for. And there are parts of this book that do drag, though, especially in the final third of the book. However, it all culminates in an insanely violent and gory climax in Zach's grandfather's boathouse. And there is a set piece involving a hot air balloon that basically left my jaw agape. It felt more like reading a screenplay from like an unproduced horror flick from the 1980s. Maybe like an early draft of a screenplay that later had to be like rewritten so that they could get an R rating. Just absolutely just insane, very, very gory. And it actually is probably that end set piece, as well as some of the other gory bits through this book, that actually elevate it, in my opinion, from a 2-star read to, like a decent 3-star read. Of course, like, granted, you're into gore. There are definitely scenes of splatter here that rival some of the grue in the novel Demonic Color by Pauline Dunn, another book which I reviewed on this channel from around the same time, and incidentally, another book published by Zebra. Yeah, you gotta love Zebra. I admire you so much, Zebra. So here are just a few of the delightful things that you will find in The Devil's Coin. So you will find mega migraines, kids sucked down swimming pool drains, zombified fathers who are manipulated at the whim of little children, greedy gun-toting priests, feral blood-hungry 2-year-olds with gnashing teeth, skulls rearranged through vertical prison bars, treasure hunting in tenebrous mine shafts, multiple people getting their throats ripped out, kids taking multiple bullet blasts to the brain, and so on. However, it must be said that this is definitely middling zebra, which I guess you could say is like standard zebra, because in my opinion, like most of their stuff is middling. But it's definitely more William W. Johnstone than Stephen R. George, for those of you who are familiar with the Zebra stable of writers. Definitely a throwaway novel that will leave your brain the moment after it's done. There's not quite enough batshit craziness here to make up for the flat characters or the standard ho-hum plot, except for the end, of course, that final set piece I was talking about during the climax. Overall, it's not quite as fun as this author's previous horror novel, a novel called Throwback, which I quite enjoyed. I mean, it's another like 3-star read, but it's a little bit more entertaining as a 3-star read. That one's definitely like, if this one's kind of like The Exorcist meets, I don't know, like a zombie movie, then that one would be like a Frank Henenlotter movie on paper. But not quite as fun, and I definitely did not enjoy this as much as Blood Sabbath, the novel that I reviewed last time for Satanic Summer. I thought that one was, even though that one's not as gory, not nearly as gory, I thought it was a lot just more entertaining in general. And I have to say that with the surfeit of vintage horror out there, and especially, the abundance of zebra horror, just like all the books that they put out, you could probably give this one a pass unless you find it for super cheap, or are a zebra completist, or are just a completely unforgiving gorehound and will just read anything that has, blood and guts in it, because it certainly does have that in parts. But yeah, that is The Devil's Coin pretty much. Not really a whole lot more to say about it. If those things sound appealing to you, check it out. Don't spend a lot of money on it, though. It's not really that worth it. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that review. Thanks for watching, as always, and be on the lookout for more book reviews in the Satanic Summer series. There should be another one coming up pretty soon. I will see you guys later. Thanks again. Peace out.